Hello. We were just commenting, it was a great song choice. I was really happy for that. So we're getting a double whammy here. I really appreciate it because normally people come out of lunch and they're a little lethargic and tired. Thank you. And instead we had Ludo and the Foxfold team kind of bringing the energy up. So I appreciated that because it makes our job a little bit easier. So thank you all very much for joining us. I'm really thrilled to be here. We are doing a panel on AI and how it can kind of apply to all of your hotels. And I wanted to start off just really quickly having everyone just introduce themselves. And maybe we'll start with you, Anna, just a quick 20 seconds.
Great. So hi, everyone. Hope you're having a good afternoon. It's very nice to be back and seeing a lot of faces from last year. So my name is Anna Baird. I have worked in big tech for a long time. Don't throw anything at me. And I'm very interested in talking a lot about how application of AI can be brought to you all without fear or stress.
Amazing. Super nice to meet everyone. This is my first year at the conference. My name is Keith Dazer. I'm the CEO of a company called Deliver Digital. We help organizations make their biggest technology decisions from the platforms they pick to the strategy they have, and really excited to contribute to the conversation here today.
Perfect. My name is Adam Hert. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Operto, and we make agentic AI solutions for hotels. I actually started my career at the Vancouver Convention Center and got my university education in hotel management, and now I'm building tools for hotels.
Awesome. And I am Tommy Kalita. I work with Muse as part of our fintech team. And I've had the pleasure of attending this conference 3 years in a row. And it's been actually very fascinating because some of you who attended last year may recall that we had some conversations about this even the year before. This is a growing piece of kind of the hospitality landscape. And so I'm excited for all of us to chat a little bit further. And so just to start things off, I just wanted a show of hands from everyone in the room here. Like right now, how many people in the room have used like ChatGPT or something similar in the last little bit, specifically for anything work related? Like just out of curiosity, show of hands. Awesome. That's fantastic. What is that? It's probably 70% of the room. Just out of curiosity, another show of hands. Who thinks they're like a power user? Do we have a couple people here that like feel like they're really, really using it? Anyone? There we go. All right, I love that. I want to chat with all of you later because you guys all have some really good secrets I know that I can learn. Awesome. So, what you can kind of see here is I bet you if we had done this a year ago, 2 years ago, it would be a lot smaller share of hands, but we're seeing people start to incorporate it deeper and deeper into what they're doing at their hotels. And so just kind of start the questions off. Anna, I want to start with you. So there's a bit of a gap right now between hoteliers that are experimenting with GPT personally and then the ones that are actually deploying AI into their operations. So what do you kind of think is sitting in that gap?
So I think first and foremost, I saw 2 hands go up at the back, and I have now memorized your faces as power users, because I think that you all can really support this group, because this is a continuum. Like, we're all learning together, and as we know, the technology is changing daily, hourly. I think the first thing I would like to underline, not to start with the legalese, but if you are using a consumer tool, so what I mean by that is you are not paying a fee. It is not what we call a gate-kept walled garden experience, i.e. your data is out there for the world. You need to be careful about PII and things that you're putting in it because you're training the model for every other consumer, right? So I think the first thing I would say, some of you sort of resisted when Tommy was like, who uses it? And then you kind of put your hand up and he was like, for business, and you were like halfway down. I think the major thing to think about is for business in this space, particularly because you're dealing with all types of data, employee and guest, there are a number of cheap and cheery things that you can do. We were talking about them earlier, where you don't have to be concerned about using a consumer asset like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude because you're taking out names or credit card information or whatever it is. When you want to start to use data that you do not want to give to the world, that is when you pay a fee to use an asset. So I think the first thing is, are you paying a fee? And if you're not, are you careful about the data you're putting in there? And there are some easy ways to do that by stripping the data just to get to the core of the asset. So I think we were talking about a great example. I think it was it was allocation of something. Staff?
Oh, it was the housekeeping schedule.
Yeah.
So it was a small hotel that was looking for ways to organize their housekeeping schedule. It was a problem they'd had for the last year, trying to figure out vacations and days off and everything.
Perfect.
And they were like, "Is this something that AI could do?"
Yes.
And in about 3.5 minutes, we took the last names out of column B. So we anonymized all the data. We put in a text around all the provisions. Sue can't work on Fridays. Bob's on vacation for 2 weeks. We plugged it into Gemini. And in about 3.5 minutes, we had a working schedule that solved a problem for them that they'd had for the last year.
So that's just one example, and you can take that. I wasn't going to borrow with pride your example because it was so great. So I'll give you props for that. But you can take that example, and Tommy, this can happen lots of different ways. So I think the second thing I would say is do test before you start to pay for the platforms. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. But literally, I guess my best trick from last year that I shared with some of you is use one of the models to take a picture of the inside of the contents of your fridge and ask it to make you as many recipes as possible from just what you have in your fridge. And you start to come alive, you start to see the possibilities of what AI can do for you. Maybe you get some great recipes. Maybe you have a terrible fridge of contents that don't make sense. And either way, maybe you go shopping, but it's just the experience of doing. So I think innovation comes from doing, and you can start cheap and cheery. And then there are real life examples, vendor contracts, exactly what we just talked about in terms of people's time off. There are tables you can build, you can use it today and tomorrow, and you can start dipping your toe in that water.
I, for one, was incredibly inspired by how many recipes came out of cucumbers, ketchup, and expired milk. It was really fascinating. No, that's excellent. And so, Adam, I wanted to actually bring it over to you a little bit. And you built AI agents that are working with like pricing, guest communications, housekeeping, scheduling as well.
That's right.
Where have some of the results kind of really surprised you? Like, where have you seen that maybe things are better or worse than you expected with some of the things that you built?
Yeah, do you know what? We're still fairly new to this. I think everybody is new to the space. Like AI is changing very quickly. We've seen a lot of surprising results. So we've seen the full gamut. So we've seen small properties that are 30 rooms go full AI across their stack. They have AI running their distribution. They have AI running the messaging. They have AI helping with the back of house and coordinating tasks and helping with scheduling. And they're just fully into it. And they're seeing results across the board, right? They're really just trying to like increase their margins, get a higher occupancy rate, and they're seeing those results. We've also seen, I think what was most surprising to me is we've seen some properties who are very hesitant around AI, especially around anything that comes between their property and their guests. Right? So it's part of their brand, so having AI maybe answer guest messages seemed like a very scary thing. And for that same property, when we showed them agentic AI that can help with distribution, they said, fantastic, like let's just turn it on, just like throw that thing out there. Anything we can help with distribution, we want to see that in there. So like, I think for each property, instead of being maybe led by the solutions that you see out there, really start by just like writing down like the problems that you have or the opportunities you have in your property, and just technology aside, what would you really want to fix first? Like what's most important to your property? Maybe it's not guest messaging. Maybe that's something that you want a human to do for a very long time. Maybe it is on the distribution side. Maybe you want higher occupancy. Maybe you want to retain or pay less in commission to OTAs. Maybe you want to do more preventive maintenance. But just start with kind of the problems and what makes your property unique, and then go looking for solutions. There's lots of solutions out there. AI is incredibly powerful, but I think starting with that base of, well, what would really be impactful to my property?
Well, and I think if I could add to that a little bit as well, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? And I think that's the thing that makes most people terrified when they think of AI. There's so much narrative around job replacement, and the robots are going to take over all the jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't have to be this black or white scenario. And I think, each property, each hotel is going to have a different use case that makes sense for them. But I think that a lot of the things that are probably closest to the money right now are actually some of the back office stuff, some of those things that actually really increase operational efficiency rather than trying to drive some of the net new revenue. Like both things exist at the same time.
Absolutely.
But I think that it doesn't have to be this, okay, we're doing AI, goodbye employees that have been with us for 25 years. We're now an AI-enabled hotel.
Yeah, exactly. It really doesn't need to be like that. And another thing that we found is when we're talking to hotels and general managers, often the question that comes up is, well, what are other people doing? Like, what are other similar hotels doing? And you really don't need to follow exactly what they're doing. I think that could actually lead to maybe choosing the wrong solution right away. Like, if once you write down the opportunities and the things you want to change in your property, or maybe the things you want to optimize, go a little bit deeper in there. I think it's fair to ask then, hey, how are people optimizing the back of house? How are people maybe optimizing their go-to-market and their distribution? And feel free to talk to like other vendors. You can look at solutions out there. You can always contact them and say, hey, I want to speak to product or customer success, kind of go around sales a little bit and just like see how people are solving these problems and then kind of go down that path to find a solution.
Awesome. And I think one of the things that maybe a bit of a spicy take, but I think earlier we said around 60% of the people here had said they'd been using AI for business purposes. But I'm going to say that probably 100% of your businesses have someone in your business that's actually using AI at the moment. Something that we've seen a lot of success, and I would encourage all of you to really consider, is that people are already practicing and using these tools in different ways. And so it's a worthwhile endeavor to bring that out from the shadows, get people to talk about it, get people excited, get everyone on the team, like no matter who they are, no matter what their role is, to try building something for 1 week. And one of the things you can think about too is that you can actually have these systems actually help you ideate. Say, like, this is something I'm trying to solve. What could I do to potentially solve it? And sometimes the tool, it's not about throwing in a spreadsheet and having it pop something out the other side of AI, but instead, you can actually have it help you build a tool that's solving a problem on site. So a really good way to kind of start exploring is have your team actually do it. And at the end of the week, everyone presents their project, whether it's an app that they built for themselves or something that they're using particularly in a business context. The more you can normalize that experience and have those dialogues, that's when things get really exciting, because that's where the ideas really live. And so I'm going to move it over to Keith, and I wanted to chat a little bit because Muse, we acquired an AI company. We have a lot of AI businesses here right now, but that there is right now, like every vendor in hospitality right now is really becoming some form of an AI company. And so how should a hotel really evaluate what's real and what is just kind of a rebadged spreadsheet?
Well, so I think there's two components. Like the AI valuation bump seems to be a very real thing. Every company now seems to be an AI company. But I think Adam mentioned it really well, which is anytime you actually start with the platform to solve a problem you didn't know you had, I think you're walking down a pretty dangerous path. And so the really cool thing about AI is that it can get you to that 80% really quickly. It can solve some really interesting challenges for you, but it also gets everyone else to that same 80% at the same speed. And so what that actually really creates is the opportunity for domain expertise to be incredibly, incredibly important. And so if you think about the things that you know within your business, and you think about the challenges that you solve, if you talk to your team, if you talk to your customers, your guests, and really understand where those friction points are, where things that are highly repeatable, things that either have friction, things that people hate to do, start there and start to really understand those problems, then go in search of the platform that can solve it. And AI might be the solution, but AI might also not be the solution. It could be hire a new person. Like, the technology is not always the answer. It's just another tool in our tool belt.
Yeah, and I think, Keith, the thing that I would hone in on is data is not new. Like, we've had data for ever. Ever. And I think everyone's like, oh, I've got to hurry up and I've got to do this AI thing. But the reality is like you can have some very real, very strong data conversations that get you ready to figure out, is AI the thing that will help me, or is it a hire of another person, or is a new piece of expertise? So my advice to all of you, depending on the roles you play within your organizations, is to start every meeting with data, because the more you get to know the sources, the more you get to know the quality of it. And if you don't have quality data, hey, guess what? Generative AI can give you artificial data now, right? So there's a lot of cool stuff, like really easy levers here that you can start into this journey without feeling like you have to be an expert on all these platforms.
One, I think to build on that as well, like, data is the currency. And I think that where it becomes really interesting, especially in the vendor evaluation side of things, is knowing, first of all, understanding your own data estate. Making sure that you have some kind of policy and making sure that it's clean and up to date, et cetera, et cetera. But then also, when you think about everyone else also playing that catch-up game with AI, knowing that if you're putting your data into a system, being really aware of how that data is being used by those vendors too, because it is your competitive advantage at the same time. And it can be your competitive moat. And if you're giving that away to vendor A, B, C, or D that's using it to kind of train the same model for every single other hotel, you're giving away your competitive advantage. So you really need to be aware of where that data sits, where it's being stored. There's a whole bunch of compliance coming down the line. I could talk about this for way too long, but
Maybe just a bit of a segue, because we started this with everybody saying AI everywhere. Like, you can't escape it. There's like the little icons. It's in every product on any SaaS product that you use. And there's really kind of becoming two categories of AI. There's almost like the traditional AI that you have to go in and ask a question. And now there's agentic AI, which is probably a little bit over-branded. But this is where like there's actually like an agent, kind of like a computer, running in the background doing things for you. And it's actually running when you don't have to go in there and ask it a question. And that's actually coming back to the original question too. That's where we're seeing kind of more and more success, where you really don't have to use it and log into it or really know, kind of like be an expert in that domain. And that agent is just like doing the work for you and producing the results. So I would, as you look at solutions and look at the problems in your property, look at, hey, are there solutions out there where I really don't have to log in and look at a dashboard, and this problem can kind of just be solved for me? Because more and more there's solutions for that.
Awesome. And I want to actually double tap a little bit on the data piece, because you talk a lot about data being lovable. And we know that a lot of hotels are really hearing the word AI, and we should actually be doing an AI drinking game right now. Take a sip of coffee every time we say it in the next 20 minutes. But
why does it have to be coffee?
No one's going to make it to the rest of the event, yeah. But that being said, a lot of times you hear AI, a lot of people hear AI and they think replacement. They think about how this is like replacing someone. So maybe from your side of things, like, how do you get past that? Like, how do you see getting past that?
So I would eliminate the word efficiency out of all of our vocabulary. I know it's hard, but when employees, particularly or teams, hear efficiency, they hear cost cutting and people cutting. I would switch it to empowerment. And I would also change artificial intelligence to augmented intelligence, because the reality here is your space is a space that requires humans to be in the loop. So I'll give you an example. A concierge can be augmented. So the 3 hours they spend answering what's the Wi-Fi code, I literally asked it today. I'm sure that individual at the front desk has been asked it a million times, or has a host of spreadsheets trying to track all the guests. Augmented intelligence for your concierge is saving the 3 hours of that time so that they can create like popsicle moments, which is that idea of just exciting and delighting and hyper-personalized, which, by the way, raises your RevPAR and allows for better sell, cross-sell, sell forward. The second thing I would say is you have, as Tommy said, people all the way across the continuum in the business. There are individuals that are a bit scared to tell you that they're augmenting their intelligence because they don't want you to think less of the job that they're doing. So when you kind of put that out on the table and you say, here's how we're going to think about empowering you, we're going to take the data entry, the drudgery out of your role. So I want everyone to go back and ask their employees, what is something you do that makes you a data entry clerk versus a hospitality professional? And you will 100% get like a very angry list of things that people would love to take off their plate. And that makes all of your employees that much more valuable. I'd love to hear both your thoughts, but these are like easy things that we can do to have that augmented intelligence and really like bolster our employees.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I would say probably 80% of hotels are looking for exactly that. They're looking for augmenting their employees to making them more effective, making a better guest experience, making kind of data and just like less clicking on a computer and making things more accessible to them. I think that generally that's where things are going. I think, again, kind of look at your property of what's kind of best for you. I am shocked sometimes. We spoke with a chain out of Australia, and they said, we're actually bringing in robots to do housekeeping. We've got robots in the restaurants, and we're automating everything we can. Be like, that's what they want to do. They can go down that path and blaze a trail and see how that works out. But I think the vast majority of hotels today absolutely looking to augment and making their staff more effective.
And I think what I would say, and again, it's to each their own, and everyone wants to show up differently. There are robots right now in a host of airports across the world, and there is something very different about that experience. Also, on occasion, they will run over you, and I have had that experience in certain airports. So I guess what I would say is, yes, that can happen, and maybe that is our future, and maybe I just need to wear steel-toed boots. But I think what I would also say is, right now where we are, and at least for the foreseeable future, the people side is still equally important in my view.
Yeah, like outside of being now terrified of airport robots, I don't have too much more to add to that. Like I think that the idea of learning the questions to ask around the data that you have, learning to fall in love, which is that continual iteration, and then staying true to what those core brand promise and brand values are. Like, it could be an interesting novelty to stay in the robot hotel, but I know that when I like to check into a hotel, I want something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And so how do you put the people that are delivering those experiences in the absolute best position to deliver something world class? And I think AI can help them do that, not replace them in doing it.
And I would say actually as well, so on the messaging side, there's lots of solutions for guest messaging in hotels today. And most of the products will say, oh, we can automate 90% of your messages. But you actually don't have to do that and still get a lot of the value. So often the products will kind of tout that side of it, but there's huge value in the AI just helping the human write a little bit faster. And so instead of the AI just responding to guests right away, it can actually have the response drafted there, and the human can still tweak it a little bit and make sure that's effective and there's no mistakes. It can still save a lot of time and probably get you 90% of the value, and it's still human and still personable.
Yeah.
Can I quickly ask how many people in this room have AI help them with negative review responses? And who's hiding their hand right now? I feel there's a few more. Awesome. So this is really good. So actually, I want to kind of go a little bit deeper actually on your side, Adam, with the like you built a bit of an agentic platform, and what are you seeing from what you're hearing from your customers about what operators actually want versus what you thought they want? Is there anything that kind of...
Can I just suggest we define, though, what agentic platform is? Like, I'm not saying that maybe you all know, but I know a lot of folks ask me, what's the difference between a large language model and agentic AI? I don't know if that's worth us defining.
Sure, yeah, and it kind of comes back to the earlier one that agentic AI is where the AI is really running on its own, very much like a human. And so it kind of brings its own expertise, and where we're seeing really the most success is on the distribution side, so AI helping hotels get more direct bookings, save on commissions, especially in boutiques. Think of it as like onboarding like a marketing person that you couldn't have full time given your property size, and now you basically have somebody there working full time. And the real difference is you don't have to come in and type in something and ask a question. It's actually just off and running. It's saying, hey, I'm planning to do this thing. I expect this result. Is that okay with you? And you kind of just answer it and say, yep. And then it's off and running. So especially for smaller properties that are kind of owner-operator, when they don't have time, those type of solutions, like they really don't have to learn a new product or look at a dashboard or learn a new UI. It's not really a new thing to manage. It's just a thing that's going to update you, and then you can ask questions as you see fit. But that's really the difference between like the agentic model, where it seems like a human that's doing something and it's bringing skills to your organization, versus something that you can go in and ask questions and it'll give you an answer.
Yeah, so I think the reason I say this is because recently I was having a conversation with someone. They said, just like break this down for me 5-year-old style, LLM versus agentic. And here's how I thought about it. LLM is like a librarian. Like you go to the library, you take out the book, you get the information, you, individual, go and retrieve. You ask questions to get answers. The agentic side is very much like, well, what we all hope for in an employee, which is like forward thinking. How should I think differently about this particular situation? How should I operate even when Tommy's not watching me as my boss in the background? So it like comes to life through that like brain, but the brain is the LLM piece, and then it has, hands, feet, and mobility. And so that's to how I guess I don't know if I did a great job of that. That's how I'd summarize agentic, is like always on, always thinking, goal-oriented versus go and retrieve. I hope that's helpful.
I think it's perfect. And like it seems natural kind of over time, but when you just receive a text message that says, hey, I did this thing, we're seeing these results, and you kind of forget that there was, like you didn't ask for anything, you kind of forget there was a robot behind there, like it becomes very real.
Yeah.
I wrote an article a while ago that talked about the idea of even kind of the changing need of kind of leadership versus management. And so with the emergence of some of these agentic tools that do operate on their own, you need to be really clear on what you want them to do as well. And so no longer is it kind of the rah-rah motivation when you're talking to an AI, at least for now. But I need to be really clear what the start line is. I need to be really clear what the finish line is. And they're going to take that liberty to be able to execute within those parameters. But I think that gone are the days of kind of pushing someone towards something and kind of hoping they figure it out. In that AI space, you need to be really clear about the start and the destination on that agentic side of things.
Absolutely. And if you look at the kind of like general stats across industries around AI, you'll still see like there's kind of poor returns, like in general. And I think that's because so many people rushed into it because AI sounds exciting and they didn't really know what return they should have gotten. So if you're ever looking for a solution, start with the problem, start with the expected returns, then see, hey, how would this particular solution actually solve that and how would I measure that?
Yeah, and I think in at Muse, we actually, I think a lot of people, we talked earlier about how people are worrying about, their jobs, if they're starting to use AI in some form in their work. And agentic seems somewhat scary in that way because it is like all of a sudden, wait a second, like this is a person. But, I know internally one of the things that we did is we were very clear that if you can go and use these tools to, automate 50% of your job, you aren't going to lose your job. You've just 2x the work that you can do. And so when we start to think about that, about how some people on your team can get empowered, where it's like, this isn't going to be replacing you. We are making you more powerful in the work that you do. And we're able to do that much more because of the fact that you've really embraced these tools. I think that is really the unlock that people should be looking at, and ensuring that people aren't doing these things in the dark, because especially when we talk about privacy and things like that, you want to encourage transparency about what's being done, because if they are taking all of your guest data and throwing it into an LLM so that they can glean some information, that may not be what you want at your particular property. So it's really trying to be thoughtful about this and understanding that this very much is moving very quickly. Like, if we had this conversation even 2 months ago, it would be a very different conversation. And so for anyone who's maybe only used like a LLM, in 2024 or early 2025, and that's their rubric of what they're kind of rating these systems on, a lot has happened since then. So it's very much a good opportunity to revisit. And so I actually want to move things over to Keith and ask a little bit further. So when you're helping hotels like evaluate technology, like what are you seeing from your side of things when it comes to the most common kind of expensive mistakes that you're seeing when it comes to AI adoption? Anything in particular come to mind?
So I think that there's two, we'll say, like common pitfalls that we see people jump into. The first one is getting attracted by kind of the shiny object, and what that means is they'll go to a conference, they see a tool in the trade show booth, and they set up the demo and get really excited, and they sign up on Tuesday and deploy on Friday. And I think that there's really well-defined problems in specific industries, but there is nuance to how you define it within your own organization. And so starting to really understand that problem first, and I feel like we're kind of beating the horse pretty hard here on the defining the problem, but really spending the time to be able to do that up front is just probably the best use of your time you can do. Spending more time in that discovery and iteration phase is going to be the best money you spend. The second, and I think Adam touched on it again here as well, is not having those clear measurables around when are we going to accelerate something, when are we going to pull the plug on something. And we see a ton of kind of POCs or proof of concepts of what they're doing. They buy the tool, they have this great idea, and then it just kind of extends forever. And so there's no clear on or off. And so they apply their effort, their resources, their time, their money, their licensing subscriptions to things that just kind of sit in the background, never fully realized. And so I think that as you're starting those pilots, like once you understand that problem, once you pick the tool or platform to deliver it, having really clear success criteria along the way to measure, are we on the right track? Is this doing what we thought it was going to? And having those feedback loops so you're not just having a platform or solution or technology forever and ever and ever.
Just one comment, one kind of barrier that we see to success is, let's say, lack of data or kind of competing data. So all of this technology, all of these agents, they all run on data. And if the data is not accurate or if there's not enough, they can't do their job. Just like a human, right? If you're going to hire a new human to do something specific, if you didn't have instructions or the data in your hotel for how to do that or how to operate, they're also going to fail. So it's good to kind of check, do you have good data, and is really consistent and the same across all systems?
But I think that's a good call out too, because on the data side, I think a lot of leaders that I talk to, that's the part that gets overwhelming, because do I have good data is such an overwhelming question. Most of your data is probably sitting in 4 or 5 different systems. The idea of trying to unlock, is it good or is it bad? Is it accurate or is it not? How am I going to pay someone, X amount of dollars an hour to go through line by line? AI can actually help with some of that now too. But I think that, to cap off the other thing that people maybe get hung up on is I think they're scared of kind of opening Pandora's box a little bit and what happens when it starts going, because it is such a fast moving train. And it is so much unknown right now too with how the technology is evolving.
I think on the data side, I would just come back to get really gritty with it and start vetting it yourself, because the reality is data is always going to be imperfect. But if you are using it on a regular basis, or you have employees saying, actually, I've started to collect this other data that I wasn't telling anyone about, that happens a lot, right? And I think there's structured data, which you're getting from your finance systems, and it has a schema to it. There's unstructured data, which is text messages or handwritten feedback cards or, everything in between. That has value to it, and people can start analyzing that today. Yes, absolutely, the AI can also kick that up a notch, but if you're not ready for that, you can take those baby steps. But if you are ignoring your data debt, that is not good. No one wants that for you, because that will put you further and further behind. And so if you think your data is maybe so-so, then there are ways to fill those gaps. Or you're sitting in a room full of very intelligent individuals. They may have data that you can borrow with pride or even collect at a higher level and delabel, but share in some of the pain points that you all have. So I think there are some layers to cracking the data that don't have to be so painful.
Yeah, I think it's, and most systems now will try to grab data from many sources. Even our own systems will look at your website and read every word and try to learn about you, and then they'll use that information. And it's always surprising to me when we'll get a support ticket, be like, oh, it actually used the wrong information. This is inaccurate about us. And so we'll always go look at it, and it's on the front page of the hotel's website. It's
yeah,
that's what everybody's seeing. That is your information today.
Yeah.
But I think that process of going through that data cleanup also teaches you new things. Someone at our table was sharing the story. I think they were actually onboarding Aperto as well. And it did the training off the website, and they're shoot, these 4 things I thought were answered. They're actually on our website. It's going to now improve our guest experience in going through this data cleanup process, because I didn't even know that blind spot existed.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a process, and you can absolutely run through it without turning it on to guests, right? So just consider that part of the process of, hey, let's see what it can find, let's see what conflicts it can find, and kind of just go through, just know that there is going to be that process when you onboard one of these tools.
And I think it's important to note as well, for anyone who's still a little hesitant, is to understand that, for example, that website example, there are AI agents already doing this, and we can expect that there are some portion of guests that are now going to be finding their hotel on their next vacation by using an agent. And so you do need to start thinking about this, because this is a segment of the market that is going to continue to grow in the coming years. And so certainly something that, if you haven't already, it's a very good opportunity to do a bit of an audit and see what you can improve, because often it is very small.
And can I just say, put your people audit against the AI audit. That's also a really fun experience. Do analog, and then also pick your platform of choice and have it run an audit for you. It can be a great competition in your employee base. Maybe you give them $1,000. Where's the Foxville team? Do they have any extra money? There we go. He said $10,000. Did anyone else hear that?
These stakes are high.
Anyway, what I would say is do the analog versus the AI. That's also a cool experience. And we refer to it as, red teaming and security, but do that, put it head to head, because then you get to see how AI and people think differently and why they're both valuable.
And this is totally unrelated to our product, but there are more and more guests that are using ChatGPT, using Gemini to basically for the awareness stage of finding their accommodations, right? It's really exploding these days. And one thing to be aware of on the data side is these web searches and the public kind of uses of these will look at every page on your website, even the ones that you've turned off and thought weren't visible and thought nobody would find, and still has COVID instructions from 2020. That is showing up in people's searches, so you kind of have to clean house and make sure it's current.
Awesome. And so we are getting close to our time. So I want to ask one kind of big question, and that is that, if everyone here went back to their property after this and did one thing to kind of related to AI this week, what would you want them to do?
Sure. I think talk to your teams. And it's not an AI thing, but it's actually go and talk to your teams that are on the front lines, that are interacting with your guests, with your customers. Talk to your housekeeping staff and ask them the challenges that they're having. And they're going to be the ones that have some of those really interesting opportunities that AI can probably help them be superhumans in what they're doing. But it's maybe not even AI, maybe it's a little bit of a cop-out answer. But I think talk to your people.
Yeah, I would say build your own prioritized list of where you want technology to help. And that will help you in really two ways, because then you can go really lead the conversation in finding solutions. And then if you have some vendor reach out and it's number 10 on the list where you don't want technology to solve that right now, then you can easily say, hey, that's not for us right now. Just like drive that conversation instead of being driven.
So I'm going to give you two. One involves cocktail hour. So I would do your own survey here today while everyone's having cocktails. I would go around and ask people what their biggest pain points are with their businesses. I would compile that list, take it back to my team and say, what else do we think? And I would give them a starting point. And you can literally crowdsource that here today, a la Martini. The second thing I would do, if you're a bit braver and a bit more interested, is I would use video and pictures of your property. A lot of it's probably already out there on the internet. I would upload it into one of the consumer AI offerings and ask it to write you a depreciation report. It will be fantastic as a baseline, and it will show you the power of multimodal AI, which basically just means text, speech, music, video, image, etc. So those are my two challenges for the $10,000 by Foxfold. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to wrap this up with one final big question, which is that when it comes to AI and hospitality, what is the one thing that no one on a panel like this is currently talking about? And they should be.
Sustainability of the technology, I would say.
I think we haven't talked enough about AI voice. It's gotten really, really good in the past couple of weeks. It's like
that's more positive.
I'm going to be a little bit of the downer, and I'm going to talk about the security side of things. But I think that the world can be incredibly exciting with some of the advancements that are happening on the AI side of things, and this goes for all technology. But I think that, and Anna opened with it, having that counterbalance to say, do I understand the information that I'm putting out in the world? Do I understand what risk that creates for our reputation, for our guests, if that gets out? And do I know where I'm putting it? And so I don't want to be the fearmonger, but I think it just needs to be a deliberate conversation around risk, especially with some of those free models, and around that power of your own data. And then what controls and precautions do you have in place to make sure you're mitigating that risk?
Awesome. Okay, so I think that you all did a great job. I wanted to wrap it up very quickly with one last piece that is really saying that we know that regardless of kind of what your stance is, your personal stance might be when it comes to the use of this technology at your hotel or personally, whatever it might be, we know that this is a wave that is going to continue to grow. And like I said, for those that are paying attention, like within the last few months, we have seen just orders of magnitude in increases in what is possible. So I encourage everybody here to really take some time and look again at, number one, uncovering the use in their own properties, because everyone is already using it, whether you know it or not. Creating a dialogue with your teams to really ensure that you understand how it's being used, how it can help, where some of the security risks or vulnerabilities could potentially be. Have those conversations, and then look at how you can take this technology and build something even more exciting and even more incredible, so that you can really ride this wave with everyone else. So I want to say thank you very much for everyone on the panel. Thank you all for taking part. We didn't have a lot of time to do some of the other questions that come up, but certainly we are all here if you want to come chat. We do love martinis, so it's something that we're happy to have that conversation and continue it. So thank you all very much for being generous with their time, and thank you.
Thank you.